Welcome to Foundation Repair Marketing Secrets, the podcast that's rocking the foundation repair industry. Discover how to boost your leads, raise your profits, and lift your digital presence. Together, let's dig deep and transform your foundation repair business.
Alrighty, guys, we have a super spectacular, famous, successful, powerful man today on the podcast. We have RK Bob Brown. Welcome, sir. How are you doing?
Good. Glad to be here. Thank you.
I hope that intro suffices.
Yeah,
I'm sure you're like, oh, come on, you did too much. But you are, a wizard in the space. Let's face it, you've been successful in the space. Over a long time, as well as recently, you have actually sold your companies, which is incredible. Tell me about that. I guess we'll just start off with a bang. How does it feel to have, disposed of these companies successfully? What does that feel like? Maybe for our audience, they may be thinking of selling one day.
Well, I got incredibly lucky. I had a couple of bidders, and so the price went pretty high. I got a really good multiple, and it's great. I'd been in it for 35 years, so it was probably time to do something different. I enjoyed it, had a good time with it, loved all my employees, had a great time, but it was time to move on and see what the next phase of my life was all about.
Yeah. Did you do the whole kick your feet up, have a margarita on the beach, or did you go directly to taking action all over again?
I did go to Europe on a river cruise, so I guess that's sort of like margarita on the beach.
That's amazing. I was actually in Europe, partially for business, partially for life. I was there for 2.5 months last year, which was very, very cool. Where did you go and visit?
In Europe, it was the Danube. Yeah. So we started out in Budapest and ended up, I think it was Vilshofen, Germany, and then we took a couple of day trip over to Prague. And then we flew out through Paris and kind of went out that way.
Amazing. Okay. So I'm very blessed because not too long ago, I would have said I've been to none of those places. And now I could say I've been to all of those places, at least the countries. I'm sure maybe the cities, we went to different places in certain instances, but I'll tell you, Budapest was actually one of my favorite places we went, believe it or not.
Yeah, it's kind of a cool place.
It's very cool. And the tricky thing is there was Budapest and there was Bucharest, and we happened to go to both.
Yeah.
We went to Bucharest first, and then we went to Budapest. Bucharest was cool. Definitely had its things, but I really, really enjoyed Budapest. I thought it was pretty clean. I didn't know it was so affordable. They were telling us something like, if rent is $1,000 USD, that's really, really expensive. And I was looking around like, this place is clean, it's safe. Like, this is great.
Yeah.
Amazing. The public transport was cool. Okay, got it. Awesome. So can you tell us maybe, we'll keep on going through the topics, but I do want to touch on that. What instilled your decision to sell, and what were some of the wisdoms that you received going through that process that maybe you could transmit to our audience who are currently maybe considering, or down the road they have a milestone to sell?
Well, so for, 20, 25 years, I've had a board of advisors, and it was 10 very successful businessmen that I just somehow twisted their arm into becoming my advisors, and we would meet quarterly and go through things. And they were incredibly helpful in helping me go through this process, because many of them had already sold. I think, there was 10 of them, and I think 4 of them went through the process and had already sold. So it was great having those guys help me through not just making the business successful, but guiding me through the exit as well. And there just comes a time in life where you're reaching the point where, hey, it's time for a change. It's not a cop out to want to do something different. A lot of people feel like, okay, if you're selling your business, that means that you don't have any confidence or whatever. No, that's not really the case all the time. Certainly wasn't the case with me. It was just time for a change. And so I was able to make it happen.
And I'd say after decades, you deserve to do whatever you want. Like
Yeah,
that's acceptable.
right.
And also too, you mentioned you got multiple bids. I would certainly say that that says a lot about how you guys handled the business, and you had a board of directors. Can you that again leads so much credence to what you guys were doing and the success you had. I would be willing to bet most of our listeners do not have that.
Yeah,
Can
it's
you
common.
Yeah. Can you lead us to how you decided to do that? Was it reading a book, going to a certain seminar? Just giving our audience how they should do that and why they should do that.
Well, I mean, there are a lot of like peer advisory boards, right? Where the Renaissance Group or Vistage and some of those, where you meet quarterly or more monthly sometimes, and you're meeting with several business owners that are doing, something, different in business, right? But you act as each other's board. Well, I was talking to my general manager at the time, and he gave me the great idea. He said, Bob, you're going to have to spend time solving everybody else's problem. Why don't we just go out and get our own board, and then we can focus on us every time? And I'm like, wow, if I could get him to do it, that'd be great. And I thought, I'll never find anybody that will do that, right? But I did. I just reached out, had connections, knew people that were highly successful, and I took them to lunch and talked to them and said, hey, would you serve on my board? And they said, yeah, absolutely. I was shocked.
That's amazing. Okay, and they keep you accountable. They've been
Right.
through the challenges that you have been maybe, but maybe they've been through more, maybe more recently, etc. What was the makeup of the board? I assume maybe some people with finance, legal, of course,
Right.
foundation, waterproofing. I don't need all the people, but more or less, is there some kind of types of people that you would recommend for our audience to reach out to if they're going to build a board?
So, you want a CPA, you want a lawyer, hopefully not the ones that are serving your company, right? Because then that conflicts them.
Yeah.
And I had people who were in, like one guy did decorative concrete, kind of like in back of me, that arch in back of me, he did it for like Disneyland and all the resort parks, that kind of stuff. I had a guy that was a plumber. Actually had a foundation repair guy in a different state, and just a big variety. I had a concrete guy, had a guy that was in security, the home security business. Just kind of a schmattering, but to me, other than maybe the obligatory things of accounting and legal, the business advice really didn't really matter that much what kind of business they were in. I looked for somebody that was
Right.
good in marketing, in B2C marketing, right?
Mhm.
And I wanted to find somebody that because we had a fair amount of commercial work, so B2B marketing was good. Uh, and operations, look for guys that were good, savvy operators for best practices, that kind of stuff. And people who are good at administration. And
Mhm.
my strong suit's probably marketing. So it was great to get marketing guys that I could bounce things off of. But that really helped make me creative and help me kind of approach things a little bit differently.
Right. Yeah, surround yourself with success. And I love it actually when my second job out of college, it was a consulting firm. And I actually just talked to one of my coworkers yesterday for about an hour and a half. Amazing catching up. And the funny thing there related to this is that we would work with top 100, in certain cases, the top 500, either COOs, CEOs, or division leaders at the biggest companies out there. And it was such an interesting approach. I didn't own the company, but I was a consultant there. And what we did is we would connect these people with something irrelevant to their business. And I think that's highlighting kind of what you spoke about. It wasn't just, okay, well, I can't obviously have competitive people on my board in my own, backyard. You did get someone from outside of your territory, which was great. but a lot of other people, they may consider, well, I just have to get people who are just like me, as long as they're not competitive. And that's not the case. Similar to what you did.
Maybe one of those is helpful, but if you have a whole board full of them, you're not going to get a lot of interesting ideas, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's what the associations and occasional Facebook groups and things like that are for. It helps move the needle when you don't have the same minded people. That there is a place for that, but I think,
right.
Credence to you that you also had people who are very disciplined in disciplines that were not your own, because it helps you get a different flavor. So super genius. And that brings us to your best-selling book. Tell us about that. I mean, obviously you have a lot of wisdom. I think books help distill it. Obviously conversations like this are great, but a book's, it just hyper distills wisdom. And I'm sure you spent, how many hours would you guess? Hundreds of hours to make that?
Many years, probably 5 or 6 years, a lot of hours.
Wow.
I wrote a blog for many years. And so I started to see a pattern with things that I wrote about. And I started to realize, hey, I should pull all these things into a book. And it covers things like, what are the basics, the foundation types, what's important to know about soils, clays versus non-clays, what does moisture do, what is depositional layers and how do they work, and how do they interact with foundations, and how do you tell the difference, and how do you do a good investigation, how do you tell the difference between heave and settlement, right? And I started just compiling a bunch of different things like that. And so that's basically a lot of what the book is about, is helping you understand, because frankly, it may be in areas where there's, where it's drier, or no, sorry, where it's wetter. Let's just take that, for example. In areas where it's wetter and it's been wet for a long time, it's not really that complicated. You could get some heave, but probably you're going to get it from a pipe break, right? You're not going to get natural heave. But on the other hand, if you're in a drier climate like where I'm at, it gets very difficult to tell the difference between heave and settlement, because I think like 70 or 80% of the houses had heave, because what happens in a drier climate is, the land's been dry for a long time. You put a house on top of it, it rains and sheds the water to the sides of the house where there's not good drainage, right? Well, what does that do? That soaks down. Well, eventually, if the soil underneath the house is really dry, that wet soil on the edge is going to migrate towards the middle. And eventually, what's going to happen is if there's clays there, they're going to get activated and they're going to swell. And so then that causes heave. And in a dry climate, in drier areas, that becomes one of the more predominant things. And it's really easy to get it mixed up. It's really easy to get it backwards. And, you got a high spot in the middle of the house because the soil heaved, and you're thinking that the edge is settled, right? Oh, you go and put piers under it, it doesn't exactly work great, right? Now, if you're from a wet area, maybe you don't run into that very often. But if you're in a drier area, you're going to run into a lot. And if you get it backwards, you're going to pay the price. You're going to have non-performing problems. You're going to have unhappy customers, and it's going to be difficult for you. So that's what my book talks about, is how to figure that out.
Amazing. How did you get involved in the business? Because you've been doing it for so long, and I know you're obviously graduated from it, which again, congrats. I think a lot of our audience, they may be kind of in that. One of the questions we ask sometimes on the podcast is there a magic number you would sell for, be it currently or in the future? How did you get involved? I take it you're just really, really good with engineering, and one thing led to another.
Well, okay. So first of all, how did I get involved in the business? So I graduated from Arizona State University in finance and in architecture. I got two bachelor's.
Deadly combination. That's pretty powerful.
So, but I didn't have any money when I was in college. The idea was to be a developer, but it didn't work very good when you don't have any money, right? So I just started doing concrete repairs to work my way through college. And when I got out of college, I kept doing them. And eventually, Ramjack called me and said, "Hey, would you be interested in being one of our dealers?" And I'm like, "Well, I don't really know much about foundation work." And they're like, "Well, we'll teach you." And they did. And most of the big networks do a pretty good job of teaching installers how to install products, right? How to put in a pier, how to shoot foam in, right? They're all pretty good. I mean, some are better than others, but most of them are pretty good, I think. But what I started to figure out, I had a lot of friends in engineering, and I would go to lunch with them and I'd talk about this, and they'd go, you're getting this backwards. This is a heave, not a settlement. And I'm like, what's heave? and, and eventually I started to realize that it was a lot more complicated than I thought it was. And so I dug in, did a lot of research, twisted a lot of people's arms, went to seminars, read a lot of books, paid for a lot of lunches, and eventually figured it out. And I started to realize that, it is more complicated, especially in a drier climate, it is more complicated. So what I ended up doing is funding and starting an engineering company, a forensic engineering company that operated in tandem with our foundation repair company. And we had, at our peak, we had 15 people in the department.
Wow.
4 engineers, several EITs, a lot of techs, we did a really good job. And then I really started to understand it a lot more, because there was a lot of feedback. There was a lot of back and forth. Well, what about this? Oh yeah, you forgot about that. Brought more dimensionality into it.
Fascinating. What would you say, just because, you've been there, done that, what would you say are the top 3 things to make a foundation repair waterproofing company successful? Or give me just a few, because if three is going to limit you and make it challenging, we'll take 4, we'll take 2, we'll take 5. I would assume your finance marketing helped a lot.
You got to be good at marketing. If you don't get the opportunities, then you can't perform, right? So you got, and marketing is not advertising, okay? Advertising is just an aspect of marketing. What marketing really is okay, what do people need out there, and what am I good at, and what can I offer that better than anybody else? Where's my strengths, right? And how does that fit in with what people want? And having the ears to the ground and listen to what people want, then you can find ways to communicate it through advertising, right? That's really what marketing is. And if you're not good at that, then you probably ought to not be in a B2C type business. Hiring good salespeople. If you can't hire good salespeople, you're going to struggle. That's just the bottom line. And there's a lot of tips and tricks and lots of ways to know how to hire right and manage. But the next thing is have good best practices. And one of this, the systems that we used was the EOS method, the entrepreneurial operating system. And they have some software, and that helped us get to the next level. The other thing I would say is hire people more than you can afford to pay.
Interesting.
Because those are the people that are going to help you get to the next level. And you're sweating bullets trying to figure out, okay, I got to figure out how to make this work, but if you always hire on the cheap, you always hire the cheapest guy, you're going to get the cheapest results, and your company's not going to grow. So those are some really good tips. I had to reinvent myself many times over the 35 years. I started out because I was a really hard worker and I could outwork anybody. I worked crazy hours and worked really super hard, and that kind of created an opening for me. But, pretty soon you got to start working with people, and you got to manage people, and that's a different skill set. And then you've got to start managing other things, and you got to reinvent yourself again. And, I probably reinvented myself 4 or 5 times to kind of get to where, I had just under 100 people working for me. There's a famous saying that what got you here won't get you there, right? And that's really, you have to kind of think about. A lot of people can get really good at something, and then that's it. Then they don't think that they have to reinvent themselves, and then they wonder why they never get to the next level, right?
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. I'm resonating with that. Do you feel there's we talk about it like a no man's land, where in business at first it's, all right, I'm trying to make money. Okay, now I'm satiated. Now maybe I bring on my spouse, a close friend, a salesperson, etc. The no man's land referring to that middle ground. Did you ever feel that no man's land, and how did you overcome that? Because there's kind of the big company or medium size, it's all relative depending on what type of company you're discussing. But what was that gap like? Did you go through that chasm of, all right, I was taken care of and things were great, but I needed to scale, and then in that weird, funky friction zone to getting to that next level? It sounds like EOS, which ironically talks about rocks and things, was super beneficial, hiring the right people. Did you experience that friction zone, and how did you overcome that?
So I don't want to mislead people to think that it was just an easy coast ride up, 35 years, because it wasn't. I mean, there was lots of challenges along the way, lots of recessions, lots of blind alleys, lots of wrong turns, lots of learning opportunities, right? And lots of experiments. I'm a big believer in experimenting, and not all of them worked, right? And not all of my decisions were the right decisions, but I learned from it. And so, yeah, there were tough times. There were real tough times. I mean, the recession of 2008 nearly killed me.
Sure.
And, I had other challenges, along the way that were super, super challenging for sure. And you know what? I mean, you take home as little as possible, and you prepare for rainy days, because they're going to come. And those people who have to show the world that they're successful by having the house on the hill, time's going to come where you're going to wish you had some money to kind of save your operations, and it's going to be too difficult and too hard to convert the house on the hill to cash for your company. So I lived lean and mean, still do. And that gave me the dry powder I needed to weather the storms, and that's just basically what it amounts to. You just have to be prepared to do kind of the uncomfortable things for a while to work yourself out of a tough spot. It always happens. There are times like I had a bookkeeper embezzle $325,000.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, you're always going to have challenges, always.
Yeah, my dad actually went through that. He had a very successful government contracting business. They went to sell it, and ironically, I think she was a full-blown accountant. She was a CPA. I don't believe they had a bookkeeper as well. She was internal to the company, so yeah, it really stunk. Yeah, it became a whole fiasco there. I remember there was a dinner that we went to, and my dad was like, hey, I did corporate. First off, he was military, never went to college, because military kind of covered those bases to an extent, or so we thought. Went to career, did very well career-wise, started a business, and didn't go great. Started another business, really did great. And we were at that dinner, and he was like, hey, Dad's becoming a millionaire. We're selling the company. Like, things are great. Maybe I was in college then. I was pretty young, early 20s or something like that. And I was like, great. I mean, I'm already doing my own thing. I'm not becoming a millionaire. But yeah, I'm so proud of him, because I'd seen the ups and downs. As you mentioned, like, it's not just like how you want your stock to go over time, where it's going up and towards the right. There's a lot of up, plateau, down, up, down, all over. But sure. Yeah, same thing. They had someone internal, and I mean, she wiped them out to the extent, I don't know how much money, but more or less there was no company to sell. The becoming a millionaire became just going back to where he was before the company, and that's challenging. Let me ask you, because I never got wisdom from him on this. I guess I never want to touch the sore subject. How can our audience do that differently? Would it be having a bookkeeper and a CPA, make sure the CPA is external of the company for insurance and liability reasons? Like, would you have a two-step approach maybe, so it doesn't just land on one person?
For sure, you want to have separation of duties. You never want, one person to have control over a lot of things, right? So you're a small company, for sure, you want an external CPA. You're a big company, maybe, 100 people or more. Okay, maybe you'll have an internal CPA, but you're still going to have an external CPA that's going to look things over. You want to have auditors. You want to have, you want to have another set of eyes. You know, you want somebody else to come in when that person's on vacation. If you have an accounting person that never wants to take a vacation, that's a red flag, because that means that they're afraid that somebody's going to come in and look over things and discover something.
Interesting.
So you want your financial people to take vacations. You want other people to come in and look at things. You know, you always want to have separation of duties as much as possible. For instance, the person that deposits the checks should never be in charge of doing the accounts receivable, right? You want those two duties separated so that nobody can like fake it, you know, and or the same thing, you know, where they would commonly invent a fake vendor and pay them. You know, you want those duties separated as much as possible so that one person, it would take two people collaborating, and that's a lot more difficult for people to do.
Right. Well, and it's kind of interesting. So some of our audience, they may be understanding this very easily. Some of our audience may be newer in the business, and they're like, oh, all money is good money. All team members are good team members. I even notice in my operation where we have a few team members, we certainly don't have 50 people, but yeah, I mean, I can't tell you how many cards I have and accounts and banks and this and that and clients that we have to look after, vendors that we have to look after. It's very easy at a certain scale to not have your eyes on all those nitty gritties. If you're one person and
Right.
you're, you know, an
Right.
employee, it's easy to be like, oh, I owe this amount of money on one credit card and I have this one bank account. It's a savings account and a checking account or something.
Right.
But when you start to have relationships with different banks, so you could be strategic in your business, when you have different credit cards for points reasons, rewards reasons, interest percentage reasons, yeah, you and you're trying to scale and grow, you have a very difficult time being able to look at every last little detail. So I think that's really wise.
Yeah.
And frankly, it's common sense, but you know, the common sense isn't always so common when you have a million things going on and you're not worried about cents, you're worried about dollars.
Right.
I love that. That makes a lot of sense. So anyone out there, just take a look. It's okay to check under the hood. It's not going to spark up and scare you or anything. You need to look under that hood. It's great to be behind the driver's seat, but it's okay to be in the shotgun seat. It's okay to look underneath. So that's good. Any other little kind of nuggets of wisdom like that? I didn't even think of us talking about anything like that today.
Yeah, you never know what comes up, right? I mean, I'm sure, you know, if the subject comes up, I'll probably have something to say about it.
Okay, got it. Any wisdom, let's say, I mean, while we're on finances, taxes, something that everyone hates or loves, depends on what side of the coin you're on. Some people, oh, I get to write off the trucks or something like that, or I get to write off the trip that I happen to go to a seminar, but I'm going to spend 5 days before the seminar enjoying myself. How can you best, from your experience, you know, not necessarily as a tax advisor or anything like that, but how did you guys strategize for taxes so that way you can do it as smart as possible?
Well, I had a famous board member who said to me, Bob, don't engage in tax evasion. Another way of saying it is you know, don't let the tail wag the dog. You want to invest in equipment. You want to invest in training. You want to invest in education. Do it. Don't do it just because you get a tax write-off for it. That's a dumb reason. If you get a tax write-off for it, great, fine, but don't do it because of that, right? Buy equipment because you want to increase productivity. Buy seminars because you want to learn something, you know, to make yourself more useful. You want to engage employees better. Okay, great. Those are all good reasons. Don't do it because it's a tax write-off. You know, pay your taxes the way you know. I hate to say it, but you know, if you spend all your time trying to avoid taxation, first of all, no banks are going to want to lend to you because
Exactly.
you're not going to show a profit. And second of all, you're just not going to be able to grow as a company. The truth of the matter is, if you're going to grow, you got to pay taxes. That's just all there is to it.
Right. And then when it comes time to selling it, you're having to do 3 years before we try to sell. And it's like, well, you want to sell next year. Good luck.
Right.
You know, it's not like it's Wall Street where we can do it. We haven't been profitable for 10 years, but the stock's still going up. It's a different game.
Right.
Definitely a different game. Tell us about some of your products. You are an inventor amongst everything else,
Right.
which is really, really cool.
Yeah. So I've invented a few things over the years. One of my fun products that I make available for contractors is a stem wall repair system. So when you have a piece of rebar in a stem wall that's rusting, and you get that horizontal crack in the rebar, that's occurring because there's a tiny electrochemical current in that concrete that's causing that rebar to rust. And it starts about 10 years after the concrete is poured. The concrete eventually shifts from it's an alkaline-based environment. And then over about a 10-year period, because of the carbonic acid that comes down from the sky, eventually it turns the concrete into a more acidic base. And eventually, when the concrete reaches enough level, then that electrical current will start. And there's really nothing you can do to stop that. You can try to patch the crack, you can epoxy inject it, you can take the rebar out and put new rebar in, but all you're doing is feeding fresh meat to the current. So what I've done is I've developed a suite of products, and it's not just the rebar, it's the hold down straps, it's the J-bolts, any kind of ferrous embeds in the concrete. So what I've done is developed a whole line of composite products that you can repair and offer customers relief that will last forever, basically, because all the other systems are very temporary in nature. And this is actually a really cool process. Depending if you have the problem in your neighborhood, you're driving around. If you're in the foundation repair business, people are going to see that and they're going to call you. And unless you have something to offer for this, you're going to look at it and go, well, there's a wasted lead. So you may be getting leads for it already and just don't know what to do with it, right? So what I've done is help fulfill this need by having this product out there. And when I was in the foundation repair business, that was one of my most profitable lines. I made more money with that than I did putting piers in the ground by a long ways.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, two guys could go out and make $8,000 a day with very minimal investment, like maybe a truck and $5,000 on equipment.
Okay.
So that's kind of a cool little product. One of the things that we've done is with the help of my engineering team is we developed a software program that helps engineers and contractors conduct a forensic foundation investigation. And one thing that contractors commonly use as a part of that software is a topographical piece of software that allows, very simply, you could do a hand drawing, you could do a drawing in any kind of junior CAD, ArcSite, whatever you want. It works as a bolt-on for ArcSite, but frankly, anything, just hand drawn, you could do it. And you draw on the borders, you put in your elevations, and voila, it automatically gives you a graphic detail in color in 3 dimensions, showing the profile of the slab, the profile of the foundation, where it's high and where it's low, color topo lines, basically. And it's really great for being able to show a customer, okay, here's the profile. Here's where it's high. Here's where it's low. Here's where you need piers, right? And it's very easy for the customer to see that. One of my maxims is a confused customer never buys. So if they can see it viscerally, if they can see it, then it's much easier for them to go, oh yeah, I can definitely see this. There's a problem right here. Oh, and by the way, that's where all the cracks are too, right? Okay, well, that makes sense. So, and then the other thing is, it's really good for the sales guys, because let's face it, sales guys are not engineers, right? They can easily misinterpret it. They can get it wrong. And so if you have a nice visual presentation, it helps them get it right. Last thing you want is foundation guys, sales guys selling the wrong thing, selling the wrong fix, right? This helps them get it right.
That's cool. Yeah, it covers the basis for everyone.
Right. So those are 2 of the really cool products that we have out there. I also developed a system that dries out clays. using a vacuum system. It runs air through the sand layer underneath the slab, dries out the swelling clays underneath. That's kind of a cool little system. And I've got a system that I'm working on that will elevate a slab with just 2-inch holes called the needle pile. Number of cool products out there. I'm hoping I'll make a difference in the world by making things easier for contractors and homeowners and also engineers. And in that way, just kind of try to make the world a little better place.
Yeah, I get it. And it sounds like, again, the beauty is you're making it easy for multiple sides of the coin. It's not just like, oh, it's just going to service the businesses and the contractors, but it's also going to service the consumers by saving them money, by allowing them to actually get a solution rather than a bunch of people saying, oh, this is a waste of our time.
Right.
I noticed with a particular client of ours, it was just crack injections. There were people who needed that before they could sell their home, or let's say before they purchased the home, or they were just living at the home and going, these things are hideous, they're ugly, what do we do? And there were certain people in that market who wouldn't service the crack injections. This one particular client did, and they were cleaning up. It was certainly kind of a secondary offering. It wasn't the full waterproofing or peers or anything of that nature, but they were cleaning up where people would reach out, especially realtors representing their clients, and they'd say, hey, how $1,000, $2,000, whatever, we just need it done. And this particular client of mine was able to fulfill it very easily and very cost effective. So I get it. I love it. Well, what other things do you have to share with the audience before you wrap up? Anything that comes to mind, or ways to reach out to you? The book, I think, is a great starting point.
Yeah, I mean, the title of the book is Foundation Repair Secrets. And if you Google that, the Amazon page will come up. And also my website under the same title will come up. So you'll find me. Pretty easy to find that way. Get on it, look around, see what interests you. I'm always open to give advice and to help people. It's what I like to do, and I'm more than happy to, if somebody calls me and says, hey, I've got this particular issue, or I've got that particular thing, or whatever. What do you guys think? I'm more than happy to try to lend my expertise and just try to help people out. I didn't make it where I made without people helping me along the way. So now it's my turn to give back.
Yeah, that's amazing. 2 last questions. Was it worth it for the people listening to us who are going through the ups and downs, who are debating whether it's worthwhile continuing to operate their company? You have seen all of the above. You have seen the nightmares, the tough times going to sleep, the hard calls, the lawyers, the insurance, what have you. Now that you're out the other side, you're again not kicked up having margaritas. You are enjoying some nice cruises. Is it all worth it if you were to rewrite the story again, knowing that it could have gone the other direction, which simply you would have just gone back to work and been successful too? From your perspective, for most people is a question, and then for you, has it been worth it?
So I had a great professor at Arizona State that basically coined a statement that I kept all my life. And the statement is basically this: everybody has to decide whether they want to eat better or if they want to sleep better, because you can't have it both ways. So, if you're in business for yourself, you've already made the decision that you're going to eat better and you're going to have a few sleepless nights. Not everybody's made up for that, right? I mean, some people, sure. If you want to just be an accountant and go to work for a big company, you don't have the tolerance for risk that it takes to be in business. The risk takers generally make more money than the non-risk takers, but you're going to have a few sleepless nights, and it's not always going to work out. I mean, you could, if you don't make the right decisions and hire the right people and learn the right lessons, you could have trouble. I mean, there's a lot of people that go out of business. For those who learn the system and pay attention to them and make themselves, your business is going to be a reflection of who you are. If you're a crappy person and you treat people like crap, guess what? That's what the world's going to hand you back. If on the other hand, you learn how to become a better person, then you will start to see returns on that. And because the fact of the matter is, the world gives you kind of what you deserve. And
Mm.
if you're not a decent person that makes something of worthwhile for everybody else, guess what? You're not going to get much in return for that. So yeah, you're gonna have tough times, and I can tell you many nights laying awake trying to figure out, gee, do I want to keep doing this? Right? Is it worth my while? And there were many times when I had doubts, but I rolled up my sleeves. I worked hard. I tried to learn, tried to make myself a better person, and in the end, it worked out for me. It doesn't always work out for everybody. Unfortunately, I wish I could say it would, but it doesn't. I mean, there's probably more than half the businesses don't hang in more than 5 years, and
Sure.
but those are some keys. Get some outside help. I will tell you that my board never hesitated to hold my feet to the fire. I mean, I would come out of those meetings with half my butt gone.
Right.
You
And
know,
that's what you want, as much as it's painful. It's like, all right, they care.
exactly, and that's what it takes. Because if I think I'm the hottest thing and I'm doing everything groovy, well, guess what? You're probably not. And you need someone to help you realize that, here's a couple of things you might try to do a little bit better, right?
Mm. Yeah, love that. Okay, great way to sum it up. My last question, just to be a nerd, it sounds like you and I have a lot of overlaps on the marketing angle. Could you give away a few insights? I obviously help on the digital side. We do the digital marketing for foundation waterproofing companies. Could you share any wisdoms that are in that realm? It could be billboards, it could be radio ads, B2C centric. Of course, some of our audience, they certainly work with property management, property owners, etc., for more commercial. But yeah, what are your thoughts on marketing? How do these companies get it right?
Well, I will say that what I think one of the most interesting guys out there wrote a book called "They Ask You Answer," and it was a really interesting book. And in it they basically talk about the fact that the world is changing with the advent of the internet. People's buying behaviors have changed, and you need to be able to communicate things that people want to hear. So it almost sounds like heresy, and everyone probably freaks out. But you know what? What do people want to hear? So, for instance, well, if you want to buy a chair or a table, you're going to go on the internet. What's the first thing you're going to what are you going to look at? What are the things you want to see? Well, you want to see the price, how much they cost, well, roughly. I mean, you don't have to be exactly right, but you want to know. Okay, so the sites that talk about that, you're going to end up on their sites, right? Well, that same thing applies to the foundation repair business. If you don't talk about that, people are not going to end up on your site. And there's lots of interesting things that people want to hear that nobody wants to put on their website, right? There's ways to behave, but in all reality, you got to put yourself in the consumer's shoes. What is the consumer thinking? What do they want? What are they looking for? Okay, how can we deliver it to them? How can we educate them? How can we help them? What can we do to make their lives better? If you start thinking like that and communicating that on a regular basis, then you'll find avenues. You'll find lots of groovy strategies digitally. You can get really sophisticated with all kinds of really cool strategies out there of gosh, it's been a while since I thought of it, but there's all kinds of strategies where you can serve your buyers in ways that you can find them and for people that are looking for what you're selling, right? There's ways of tracking them and understanding the customer journey. There's all those tools out there to help you do that. But if you don't have the right message, if you're not thinking about the consumer and what it feels like to be in their shoes, people are probably not going to find you as easily.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. So really put yourself in their shoes. Think of the mediums, because we had a really great guy. His name is Derek in the Atlanta market. He is a legend for branding. It's funny because, we're more lead centric, where it's like, well, we got you 100 calls last month and we know that you said you'll close 20% of them, that kind of thing. For him, while he incorporates some of that as well, he's big with radio and TV and billboards. And, he's kind of my old school classic staple guy. And we're kind of a new school, all tech based, and we make kind of a killer team with that. We work together on some projects. Did you guys ever have fun with things like that, like billboards or TV or any of that?
It was very difficult to do TV in Phoenix. The Phoenix market, I mean, it's not like Dallas or other markets where there's a ton, every other house has a problem, right? In Phoenix, maybe 1 out of 10,000 houses has the problem. It's a very expensive area to advertise on. I tried it. It doesn't really work very good here. I used more digital ads. I ran demand side platforms where we could do real-time bidding and show people ads that were looking for something similar. That had to be much more targeted here than just throwing it out there in a shotgun, right? Maybe in some markets that works, but I found it doesn't work here. I mean, just look at it for a minute. If you go to Dallas, there's hundreds, maybe thousands of foundation repair companies. In Phoenix, there's like 5. It's just not the same kind of market, right?
That's fascinating. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the shotgun. I always tell people, hey, like, there are shotgun approaches and there are sniper approaches. In certain instances, if you're in a home, they say a shotgun's great because that person has no chance to hide. Just make sure you're not shooting it at one of your family's bedrooms. If it's in the living room and it's nighttime and everyone's asleep, you could do the living room. A sniper is great if you're in a field and someone is a distance away. So choose your weapon wisely. You can't kill a terrorist with kindness is a message that my buddy used to say. So you have to address the situation for what it is, and you have to use the right tool or tools depending on what you're encountering. So this has been great. Really, really fun. Maybe we'll do a part 2. I know you've kind of mentioned this again, but any last little fill-ins of how people can reach out to you, websites, phone numbers, emails, anything like that you care to share? And then we'll wrap up the episode.
So super easy to find me, Foundation Repair Secrets. Almost kind of like your show, right? So super easy to find me that way. If you ever want to email me and ask me a question, feel free. Bob@Tengsol, TENGSOL.com. And I'm always happy to chat and I don't have a real job anymore, so be happy to do that.
Awesome. Yeah, you did enough jobs and you still have more going. So congrats on that. Congrats on the book. Everyone go check out his book. Sounds like it's very, very easy to find it. Congrats on selling your firms. It's not something it seems like is going to make you kind of retire, so to speak. It seems like you're taking on even more, just in a different flavor, which is great for our audience, guys. Like, I noticed something when I was doing executive consulting. It's not the it's not the executive that's making $20 million year over year with bonuses and, upsides and things like that. They didn't get there because they're lazy. They didn't get there because they wanted to kick up their feet tomorrow and retire tomorrow. The people who are successful are typically like Bob, like myself, who are just kind of a little bit sick, but in the right way, where we want to make a difference. You very quickly, if you're running a successful operation, you get past you and you become about we, not me. And when that happens, you're going to have these growing pains in different things. And you really you want to give back at a point, whether it's your team internal, you always have to be willing to give back to your customers from day one or your clients from day one.
I agree.
That never changes. But yeah, I think, anyone who's listening and they're like, oh yeah, I do want to go kick up the feet, and I want to do it tomorrow, and I don't want to do it for a day. I want to do it for a year or for the rest of my life. Yeah, good luck. I hope you win the lottery.
Well, the thing about it is, as I mentioned, there's going to be tough days, right? And what powers you through those tough days is really kind of what is your passion. If you're just about trying to make money for yourself, when you hit those rough patches, guess what? You're probably going to run out of gas. But on the other hand, if you're focused on, okay, how can I help other people? How can I make a difference? I'm passionate about this. This is something I really care about. I want to make a difference in the world, right? That passion will power you through those tough times. And a lot of it really, I know it sounds corny, but the fact of the matter is, if you're focused on yourself, it's probably not going to be that meaningful. If you're focused on trying to make the world a better place, trying to do something that's worthwhile, if you're trying to make a difference somehow, some way with somebody, and you care deeply about it, that's what's going to make the difference.
Right. Yeah, the realest, most successful people typically aren't the ones who are on the internet with Instagram and being all flashy. That's a whole new age kind of modern thing. But yeah, they're typically someone like yourself who, has been there, has done it. They didn't have a successful week or successful year. They had decades of ups and downs that eventually lead to kind of the end destination and goal point, that you probably could say, hey, you know what? I don't need to do anything anymore, but you have a deeper sense of purpose and commitment, whether it's religiously or to a community or to the world or what have you. That what's the point of golfing every day? It's fine if you want to, but
that's going to get old pretty quick. Trust me.
I believe it. Well, awesome. Thank you. Guys, hope you enjoyed this episode. I know I did. Bob, seriously, thank you for coming on, and we appreciate all you guys listening. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
See you guys.
Thanks for joining us today for another revealing episode of Foundation Repair Marketing Secrets. Don't forget to subscribe so you can keep discovering the tools, tactics, and techniques to ensure your online presence is as solid as the foundations you repair. Keep digging deep, and we'll see you in the next episode.